Hey everybody, welcome to our species spotlight on the cherry barb, Puntius titteya. The cherry barb is actually endemic to Sri Lanka with current wild populations also being found in Mexico and Colombia. Of course, those were introduced wild populations. The typical type of habitat are forest streams with slightly stained water. The type of cover or surrounding vegetation is overhanging, a lot of overhanging trees, a lot of side cover to these smaller streams. Not much light gets into them. The water is typically stained browns, amber in color. pH values are definitely acidic, and the hardness levels are relatively low. Now let's get into a little bit about the behavior, tank size, compatibility, and so forth. The typical stocking rate for a cherry barb, being as it's really a schooling species, will be really a minimum of about 6 to 8, 6 to 8 specimens. I would consider that a minimum. The size range is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 inches, or 3.75 centimeters to 5 centimeters. Females are a little bit larger. They're typically bulkier and more heavily set than males, especially as they fill up with eggs. Males are a little bit smaller and slimmer. Another big difference between the two sexes is the fact that the male really gives the common name to the fish, cherry barb. It is really a cherry red. It's spectacular, and the males will really color up super nice. It's a very peaceful species. They get along well with typical tank mates such as medium-sized rasboras and tetras. Some dwarf cichlids as well wouldn't be a problem. Boteas, corridors. You get the idea. It's typically a very compatible fish. Not aggressive in any way. It's not a territorial fish. It's an egg-scattering barb. It doesn't seek out territory, so there's no issues with that, even when they're reproducing. And the preferred type of setup when it comes to keeping cherry barbs really is a more dimly lit type setup. Floating plants would be a good idea. Some driftwood, twigs, leaf litter on a sandy bottom. And of course, incorporating the right water conditions, acidic and a little bit softer in nature. That would be the ideal type of setup for them. The minimum size of aquarium that you want to keep them in is something like a 15-gallon, being as you're going to have to keep 6 to 8 of them for them to really show their best. So it'll be 15 US gallons or 60 liters. It's an easy fish, and really one that presents no problems in terms of character, behavior, or size constraints and so forth. Really easy fish to keep. Now, when talking about water conditions for the cherry barb, being a barb, typically they take the cooler water fairly well. So the temperature range is pretty broad, about 70 to 81 degrees or 21 to 27 degrees Celsius. pH range for these fish is also pretty wide, about 6 to 7.5. And when it comes to the hardness, about 2 to 15 degrees hardness is fine for them. We obviously, for aquarium keeping, would recommend really a hardness level, in the middle of that range, somewhere 5 to 8 degrees of hardness. And when you're talking about pH, somewhere between 6.5 and 7, much easier to maintain stability and very favorable to this type of barb as well. Now, when it comes to feeding the cherry barb, it's a pretty easy fish to deal with. In the wild, they're actually, the fish itself is an omnivore by nature. So it's a fish that will feed on diatoms, algae, detritus, small crustaceans, insects, small worms, and so forth. It's very opportunistic. We'll feed on a variety of different things. When you're feeding them in an aquarium, not a fussy feeder at all. It'll take very readily, obviously, to flakes, pellets. Most of these fish are farm raised anyways, the vast majority, so they're well habituated to that type of aquarium food. What we would caution you is to make sure that there's a good amount of vegetable matter in both the small micro pellets and the flakes that you would be feeding them as a base diet. Giving them some, on a weekly basis, some supplemental foods like chopped up brine shrimp or glassworms or blackworms or bloodworms. All those things are great treats for cherry barbs as well. And giving them once or twice a week or offering them once or twice a week is fine. In summary, the cherry barb is an excellent, small, peaceful schooling species that makes for a great choice for a beginner. It is a fish that you can set up a low energy input aquarium for. Lower light levels, lower light requiring plants like microsorium, anubias, various cryptocorenes, lower light crypts are fine for that type of tank. Some floating plants, and the temperatures are cooler. You can easily keep these fish at 74, 75 degrees Fahrenheit and 20 degrees roughly Celsius. In very good condition. So yeah, overall good for beginners, and the fish, the males, are really spectacular in coloration. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to comment and subscribe before, and we look forward to seeing you again. Until the next time.